One of Donald Trump's general, I believe is the chief of staff, he admitted that bombing Iran will be devastating for the United States, right? He talked about, most importantly, casualty on the U.S. side. Donald Trump, knowing how he is, he came out talking about, no, that is not true. In fact, this general is for, strong actions against Iran, and they are all on the same page. Now, we know Donald Trump, right? Donald Trump will never come out and say, look, the general is right. If Donald Trump says something, then that's what it is. He would never change his mind. That's how Donald Trump is. So we shouldn't be surprised. Those of us who have been talking about this, we've already made so many videos about it, right? From the very beginning, I've been, very clear about this. That look, Iran is not Iraq. Iran is not Venezuela, where they can, sell your leaders like nothing. The way it happened in Venezuela is so disgraceful that nobody should ever, trust Venezuela in anything. Seriously. I'm going to tell you exactly what the West is not going to tell you. In my last video, I already explained to you the reason why the United States would not attack Iran. We can even remove the fact that Iran itself is ready for this conflict because of its, weapons, its ballistic missile program. But it's very important we focus on the presence of China and Russia. The West does not want to mention those two countries because those are two superpowers who are shaping the new world order. Mentioning those two countries means that the U.S. is in trouble. They're not going to be able to fight both countries. It is very important to mention that out of all of this, Russia and China cannot allow Iran to fall into the so-called Western democracy sphere. And I'm going to tell you exactly why that, cannot happen. Let's start with Russia. If you go back into history, Russia and Iran were never really partners. In fact, there were a time where the Soviet Union actually invaded Iran with Western countries. And that was when they feared that Iran was going to align with Hitler. I made a video on that. But one of the major reasons why Russia aligned itself with Iran is because of the power of Iran. Iran for many years have shown to be extremely good at fighting against Western sanctions. They have Israel constantly investing money in killing their scientists. Those same scientists who have invested in ballistic missiles in Iran, technologies, you name it. Those people landed a U.S. drone when the U.S. was still dominant on drones. They landed that drone and started reverse engineering. And today, they are number one in the industry of drones, specifically military drones. It is Iranians' drones that are causing the biggest damages in Ukraine today. Matter of fact, I will go far as saying that it is Iranian drones that have changed warfare as we know today. We have to be clear on that, right? And so this strength shown by Iran is the major reason for Russia to align with it. You had a Russia that was already under sanction even way before 2014 when they annexed Crimea. And when 2022 finally arrived and the conflict started, Russia found itself in a position where they absolutely needed Iran. Not just for the drones, because, this is where everything started. This is where the major cooperation between Russia and Iran started. But also to see and to learn from Iran how they were able to survive the sanctions all these years. And so you have Iran surviving sanctions, working hard in developing, major technology under sanctions. You also have an Iran that has a lot of oil. So when you look at the situation, you understand why Russia aligned itself with Iran. Now imagine yourself that Iran falls under the so-called democracy, Western democracy, you name it, right? Where they bring this facade of a democracy, claiming that they want to free Iran, right? Imagine yourself, the US, taking over Iran as Iran is right now. You know, just imagine that whatever happened to Venezuela also happened to Iran. And they start using Iranians' drones against Russia in Ukraine. Just imagine that yourself. Imagine that all this major Iranian industry of ballistic missiles, that they start sending them to Ukraine. A nuclear war will start because there's no way possible that Russia will allow such things to happen. Or imagine yourself that the United States takes over Iran and they start selling Iranian oil to Europe or allies of Russia during this sanction. Russia will have a hard time surviving. So aligning with Iran becomes very strategic and extremely important for Russia. This is why Russia will fight a World War III on the side of Iran against the US. Take China, for example. Iran today is one of the major distributors of oil to China. In fact, China is the #1 buyer of Iranian oil. So if they fall under the US, it means that the US can now control the sale of oil to China. And if the US has to control that, China will no longer buy Iranian oil because US selling oil to China, it means having leverage on China. So China will only have to rely on Russia. And if they only have to rely on Russia, it also becomes difficult for China to have competition. Because if Russia decides to, then raise the price of oil, then that's a problem. And the second point when it comes to China is the Belt and Road Initiative that China started. This building of land and railroad infrastructures, that goes through Iran when it comes to Central Asia. China invested billions, if not trillions, for that project to work. And Iran is a strategic country for that project. If the US takes Iran, imagine yourself what will happen to that project. This is why we see China for the very first time supporting a country militarily. I'm talking about China is providing weapons. They just talk about in the report that China is now providing supersonic weapons that can take down aircraft and you name it. They are providing them to Iran. This is extremely dangerous for the US.
Iran, it is quickly shoring up its naval warfare capabilities. The country is close to finalizing a missile deal with China. Now, according to reports, Tehran is fast-tracking purchases of China's CM-302 anti-ship cruise missile system. The move could shift the military balance in the Persian Gulf, where US warships are positioned at a striking distance. While a delivery date has not been set, officials say the talks are in their final stages. The CM-302 is produced by China's state-owned defense company. It is a supersonic anti-ship missile with a range of approximately 290 kilometers. CM-302 is designed to fly low and fast, making it difficult for shipborne defense systems to intercept.
Now you understand the importance of those two countries in Iran. In fact, Iran is the last survivor that would allow a multipolar world to properly be successful. The US is not going to stop the multipolar world from growing if Iran were to fall. No, but it's going to be a major setback because, what that will do is that Russia and China will have to do the same thing as the US does in order for them to protect their interests, which is now to start signing military alliance with other countries and to go to war if they have to. So a war or a bombing of Iran is the start of World War III as we know it. So when some of you come out there, puppets of the mainstream propaganda, who still see the US as the god of this world. When you come and try to criticize us, you have to understand one thing. When we predict things, we don't do it based on emotions. We think before we talk about these things. If I told you before, in all the videos that I made, that the US cannot attack Iran, it is because of strategic thinking. So when you hear the so-called breaking news from the mainstream propaganda, why the US is not bombing, or that a general is now, telling Trump not to bomb and all of that, understand one thing. It is because Iran has refused to be part of that Hollywood movie that they are trying to shoot over there. Iran already told them, no, I'm not going to allow you to shoot this movie again where you are the main actor and we are the villain. And since Iran keeps saying, no, it's not going to happen, the US is now trying to find its way out of that madness.